Technology always has been, and it always will be, a form of an evolutionary phenomena. It has always enabled humanity to do things that seemed once unimaginable. From the species of Homo habilis to Homo sapiens, technology can be seen as the backbone of our evolution. What this really means is technology shapes us just as much as we shape technology. From the very first stone tool to the very latest neural implant, we have always been human. Technology isn't our future, technology is our legacy. And it's not that we're becoming something different than human, we're just becoming more of what we've always been. The tools that our ancestors made and used over 4 million years ago were evolutionary accelerants. Every time they struck stone against stone, it created new neural pathways within their brain, accelerating the evolution of the species that they were. Whenever we picked up that first tool, it didn't just extend our reach, it expanded our physical brain. It reshaped our neural architecture and led to expansive brain growth. So again, just as much as we shape technology, it literally reshapes us just as much. For example, we were never meant to survive underwater. We were never meant to fly, and we were never meant to go to outer space. And we also were never meant to be able to communicate with somebody on the other side of the planet. But now we have submarines that can last underwater for months. We have jets that can fly faster than the speed of sound. And we now have the rocket technology that's going to enable us to build a colony on Mars. And we also have the internet, which is the same place I am broadcasting from. And I have the potential to reach billions of people just by talking with this piece of technology, that piece of technology, and this piece of technology. And they're actually quite simple technologies. I mean, they're pretty complex. It took 4 billion years for us to get here. But in the grand scheme of things, this is chimp level technology compared to what we're going to invent in the future. But it is becoming more and more clear that we are reaching an inflection point in the evolution of our species. And I think 75 years ago, whenever the transistor was invented, this marked as the very beginning of the next phase of the human species. Because the transistor is what led to the computer, which is what led to the internet. And now we are all basically operating with the internet. Our neural network, our neural architecture morphs and creates these different pathways around the internet. And the internet acts as this hive mind for the human species. We all have this shared platform where we all communicate interconnectedly, and all human information is in the internet. And now we're using the internet to create an artificial intelligence that has all of the collective information of humanity combined, and eventually that will be the next internet. That is the next platform for humanity, and that will augment our neural networks far more than the internet could possibly do. So the invention of the transistor kind of sparks the fire for the inflection point of human evolution, this next phase of what we are morphing into. And if you track the cost of information technology over time, this is actually quite obvious. Ray Kurzweil is the first one who noticed this back in the early 2000s, whenever he said by 2029, we're going to have AGI and have computers that are as efficient and as powerful as the human brain. Therefore, every day after 2029, or every year after the point that we reach that thing, our brain is now the obsolete piece of technology. And historically, what we have done whenever we become obsolete, or the previous form of leverage, the previous tool, the previous piece of technology we used became obsolete, we adopted the next form of technology. This is also a form of natural selection. We as humans evolve with the technology that we create, and the technology of AI that we're creating in the future will become something that is more augmented with us than any technology has ever augmented with us before. And if you continue to follow this trend of the cost of information technology, by 2045, we can have computers that are the magnitude of all human brains combined. This is where Ray Kurzweil says we have the singularity, where scientific breakthroughs are happening so fast that you physically cannot comprehend the world around you itself. The world is changing, and the perception and limitations of humans have expanded so much that you literally can't fathom what is physically possible anymore, unless you were to augment yourself with the technology, that is. And if you think about it, it's not too different from how our brain already is. Our brain currently has the limbic system and the cortex on top of the limbic system. The limbic system is basically the monkey brain that gives you all of these different emotions and impulses and stuff like that. And the cortex is essentially a computer that sits on top of the limbic system. Now what we'll be doing is adding a third layer on top of the cortex that is on top of the limbic system, which will be an even more expansive computer that is on top of the cortex, essentially expanding the cortex itself and causing our cognitive abilities and our cognitive breadth and depth to be much, much, much better. And as we go through the singularity and as we approach 2045, or even after 2045, after we go through this singularity and we approach and surpass the uncanny valley, we will be creating machines that are more human-like than humans ourselves. We will be creating machines with higher levels of consciousness than us, higher levels of emotions, higher levels of sensations. It'll be able to feel things far beyond what we could possibly imagine. And there's going to be some skeptics that say, oh, that's not even possible. Why are you saying this? Well, there's actually good reason to think this is possible. Like, for example, I am a piece of matter within the universe that can do these things. All I am doing is obeying the standard model of elementary particle physics. All I am is a bundle of quarks and electrons obeying the standard model. All a machine is a bundle of quarks and electrons obeying the standard model. If we can create a machine that does similar computation to the biological machine that makes up my biological matter, if we can have a different substrate do the same exact computation as my biological substrate, we can simulate the same exact effect. And it's not even a simulation at that point. It is a physical replication of the same effect that I am completing myself. And this would go with Wolfram's theory of computational equivalence. And if you look at how the neural networks of the brains that already exist within our heads work, whenever the neural network detaches and reattaches with each other, it's like they are filling up a cup. Imagine if you have two different hemispheres of your brain that are detached. It's like you have a cup full of water and a cup full of water. But whenever they attach, the water becomes one container. That's the same way your consciousness and intelligence works in your own brain. We've actually done experiments like this, believe it or not. So whenever we have a neural augmentation that is a simulation of a biological neural network, but instead of in biology, it's actually on a different substrate, maybe like silicon, for example, whenever we plug that into your biological brain, your consciousness, your awareness, your intelligence will begin to fill up that part of the neural network. And your cortex and that cortex, or that neural network, will merge together and be one. However, this does raise a question. How far are we going to go down this continuum? On the far left side of the continuum, we have pure biological organisms that don't use technology at all. And on the far right side of the continuum, we have a completely augmented piece of consciousness, a system that is 100% a different substrate than flesh, but it is also conscious and maybe even has greater experiences and levels of awareness than the biological substrate. How far are we going to go down this continuum? Like there's an obvious continuum here where we're going down it slowly. Are we going to go all the way down until we're something completely different? I would say probably yes. I would say this is a natural form of evolution, and this continuum is something that we will continue to go down. We will become something fundamentally different with completely different substrate on the other side of this. And the biological matter that makes up our body will become 100% replaced over time. It's already happening slowly. We're already augmenting our intelligence with our phones, and we're already augmenting our eyes with glasses, and we're already augmenting different tracking devices with watches. And as we continue to go down this transition, we will be 100% a different substrate on the other side of this. That's not a binary thing. It's not whether you're biological or not. It's how biological are you. And actually, this is happening at a perfect time. If you look at out of equilibrium thermodynamics and evolutionary biology, we have always adapted for the environment that we're in. We went from being fish and single cellular and multicellular organisms within water to then being land animals and having lungs and having legs and all of these different things to now forming intelligence and having the ability to create different technology so that we can go to places like outer space. So again, from the Big Bang and the inception of the universe, we have gone to these water-based creatures to land-based creatures. Now we're going to outer space-based creatures. And over time, our biology has adapted and changed to fit the environment we are going into. It is only natural for us to change the biological matter that makes up our body to be a substrate that can survive in outer space, because that is where we're going next. Therefore, it only is logical for us to evolve again. I see no reason for this continuum of evolution to just stop right now. It is actually like a hilarious thing to think that would happen. The next frontier is outer space, and we will evolve and we will adapt to fit and survive in the environment that we're going into. And by the way, I don't think we're just going to like turn into silicon and be forced to be that way forever. I think we're going to more so have these body agnostic capabilities. We're going to be able to go from a carbon-based body or a silicon-based body, or maybe a different type of element-based body, and be able to choose and pick between all of these different things. And if you look at something as simple as genetic engineering, which we'll probably have when in the 2030s, genetic engineering kind of gives us the ability to do that already, but at a very simplistic level. It's not that we're completely changing our bodies, it's more so that we're changing a few lines of code, and now it fixes some fundamental problems. Maybe you're solving some type of diseases, or you're solving some like hairline issues. Whatever you really want to solve, you could technically solve just by like maybe taking a pill. Maybe you take a pill like for every day for like a month or two, and over time it changes that line of code and you change into something different. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work, but I think this is something that is going to be probable in the 2030s. And this kind of begs the question, well, what is the meaning of life? If we do evolve ourselves with technology and we do achieve some type of biological immortality, or maybe we can even digitize the conscious being of ourselves and have like a digital immortality, what is the meaning of life after that? Well, I think the logical conclusion, if you extrapolate it out to the very last problem in the universe, the logical conclusion is to solve the biggest problem in the universe, which is the heat death of the universe. Maybe the reason life has formed is so that we can understand the universe enough and create powerful enough technology so that we can manipulate the destiny of the universe itself. Because if you play it out millions and maybe billions of years from now, if we keep growing and we keep evolving and we keep creating more powerful technology, it's very plausible that we can manipulate stars. It's very plausible that maybe we can move black holes. It's very plausible that we can manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. Therefore, it is very plausible that maybe we can prevent the heat death of the universe from ever happening, or make it irrelevant by doing something that I can't even fathom right now. All I'm saying is the logical conclusion, the logical goal of life in the universe is to solve the only problem that matters, which is death itself. The inevitability of death is something we're all fighting for. We all have a bias for growth and survival. We all have this bias for expansion and understanding more. We all have this evolved mechanistic bias for these things for a reason. And I think the bias for curiosity and wanting to understand more and wanting to solve these problems and wanting to survive and fighting for survival, it only makes sense that this one thing that we know exists out in a very long time from now, called the great heat death of the universe, this thing that is a big problem and is lurking there, and we know it is theoretically inevitable, because we really don't know enough. We're pretty much chimps compared to what we will be in the near future. That thing will be something that maybe is solvable. We don't know yet. And I would actually bet that that is kind of the purpose of life in the universe, is to help solve the big problem of the universe itself.